So with President Trump about to pull out of the Paris Climate Accords, or more specifically, now that he's actually pulled out of the Paris Climate Accords,
the United States will withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord.
Kind of a cute irony, seeing as Trump was elected in the hottest year on record. Maybe now is an apt time to bust another staple of the climate change denialists' arguments. No global warming for 19 years. Also known as there's been no global warming since 1998, or there's been a global warming hiatus. Let's see what Lauren Southern had to say about this in 2005, which was, at the time, the hottest year in recorded human history.
Even the IPCC has admitted that their computer models could not predict the pause in global warming, and that they cannot explain why world average temperatures have shown no statistically significant increase since 1997.
Now, this denial has been around for a long time. Hell, I found this Telegraph article from 2006, that's about a decade ago now, saying that there's a problem with global warming, that it stopped in 1998. And then 6 years later, Lord Monckton, a favourite of global warming denialists, stated, delegates at the 18th annual UN Gabfest at the dismal, echoing Doha Conference Centre, one of the least exotic locations chosen for these repetitive exercises in pointlessness, have a oops problem. No, not the sandflies, not the questionable food, not the near record low attendance. The oops problem is this. For the past 16 of the 18-year series of annual hot air sessions about hot air, the world's hot air has not gotten hotter. There's been no global warming at all. Zilch, nada, zip, bumkiss. Yeah, it takes a special brand of idiot to sit there at what was, at the time, the hottest 16-year period in recorded history, and use that to make the argument that there's been no global warming. Yeah, they have this chart, and they make the claim so boldly. They even go so far to cite sources, big mistake, and mock people who question their conclusions. Well, let's take a look at that exact same data in context, shall we? Ah, yes, that's much better. Now, that's the exact data that they use here. Clearly, there has been no global warming for 19 years. The fact that those 19 years were the hottest in recorded history doesn't seem to bother the global warming denialists. But hey, I guess deniers gonna deny. And if you take a more comprehensive data set, you get something that looks like this, where it's bloody clear there has been no hiatus in global warming, none whatsoever.
Oh yeah, by the way, they call that the pause. Yeah, by the way, there was a complete and total dead stop to all global warming for over 15 years, and rather than readjust their models, current climate scientists employed by your tax dollars simply chalk it up to being the pause.
Yes, if you want a real touch of irony, yes, that was Steven Crowder claiming there's been a total dead stop in global warming. You can see the one he's talking about, right? So he could release this video not only in the hottest year in recorded history, but in the hottest August in recorded history. Now, there might be people out there saying, hang on, you're being a little unfair to Stephen here. After all, he didn't know at the time that 2016 was going to be the hottest year in recorded human history. Of course, if he'd have actually bothered to check, he would have found that 2015 had previously been the hottest year in recorded human history. And even if he hadn't been paying attention to that, it was the hottest January in recorded history. It was the hottest February in recorded history. It was the hottest March in recorded history. The hottest April, the hottest May, the hottest June, the hottest July, and the hottest August in recorded human history.
By the way, there was a complete and total dead stop to all global warming for over 15 years, and rather than readjust their models, current climate scientists employed by your tax dollars simply chalk it up to being the pause.
Now, you may be thinking, okay, these are just the crazy deniers. You know, all right, they might have awards for being science bloggers, or they might have 300 million hits, but whatever. You don't get any crazy stuff like that in the Trump administration, where they have competent advisors, right? Well, let's take a look at the current head of the EPA. That's the Environmental Protection Agency. And this is him answering questions from early July 2017, at about the same time that Trump was dumping the Paris Climate Accords. And what argument does he use?
Why are the hottest temperatures in the last decade essentially the hottest temperatures that we've seen on record?
We've actually been in a hiatus since the late 1990s.
Sir.
Yeah, he uses the utterly debunked "there's been a climate change hiatus since 1998 argument. Hell, this might sound a little tangential, but I've been monitoring my weight of late mostly because I've become increasingly fascinated by human metabolism, and partly because I could do to lose a pound or two. Now you may be thinking, whoa, this video just took a sudden turn into left field. But you're wrong, because it turns out that all weight loss was me essentially turning some fat, that would be oil, into carbon dioxide, the same stuff that causes global warming. So yeah, in some ways my diet actually contributed to global warming, although maybe not in such a significant fashion, seeing as your total carbon footprint just to be alive for 1 year, just the carbon dioxide that you breathe out, is about 1/3 of a ton per year. Yep, you breathe out about 3 times your own body weight in carbon dioxide per year. And if you factor in other aspects of first world lifestyles and energy consumptions, you're looking at a total carbon footprint of somewhere between 5 and 20 tons per year. So yeah, me turning a couple of kilograms of fat into carbon dioxide is probably not that big of a deal here. Anyway, the reason I bring my diet up here is how many of you would seriously say, yeah, well, your diet stopped working about a week ago, so you should quit. Exactly. You know that there is an underlying mechanism here. You know there is a mass balance, that if I put more mass into my body than I excrete, and the lion's share that I excrete, of course, is coming out of my mouth as carbon dioxide and water in the form of humidity. If I put more into my body than I excrete out of it, then I gain weight. It's that simple. And if I excrete more than I consume, then you lose weight. And it's the same balance with the Earth's atmosphere. If you put more energy into it than you radiate away into space, then the planet heats up. And if you radiate more energy than you absorb, then you cool down. And we can measure the increase in the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere from human activity, and it's raised it from about 300 to 400 parts per million. And you get a reasonable estimate of how much that has increased the amount of energy that the Earth is getting from the sun. And remember, if you get more energy than you radiate, then you heat up. It's inevitable. After that, the only thing left to debate is where the extra energy ends up. Melting ice caps, melting glaciers, hotter oceans, hotter atmospheres, whatever. In simple terms, denying global warming is like eating a 1 kilogram super bacon cheeseburger and looking someone straight in the face and telling them that you're exactly the same weight as you were before you ate it. Denial is denial, guys. However, sadly, the arguments from global warming deniers aren't logical. They're emotional. They're trying to get you. They're trying to manipulate you. It's all the scientists trying to get rich to save their jobs or something. I just never trust a scientist. I mean, they get paid for doing science. I mean, what did science ever do for us? And who is the idiot in charge of making the decisions now? A man who not only rubbishes climate change.
I think that there'll be little change here. It'll go up. It'll get a little cooler. It'll get a little warmer like it always has for millions of years. It'll get cooler. It'll get warmer. It's called weather.
But the idea that chlorofluorocarbons destroy the ozone layer.
So if I take hairspray and if I spray it in my apartment, which is all sealed, and you're telling me that affects the ozone layer? Yes. I say, no way, folks, no way, okay? No.
I'd like to tell you a story. So if you're sitting comfortably, then I'll begin. There once was a class of compounds called chlorofluorocarbons. And they were great because you could custom make them to have the right boiling point, which turned out to be really useful for loads of stuff. They were non-toxic and non-flammable, which meant you could use them in things like hairspray. This was much better than things like butane, which, while they were okay as propellants, were kind of flammable. However, years later, geeky scientists started to notice that the ozone layer was depleting in polar regions. This was very concerning because ozone acts like a shield, protecting us from the harmful UV rays of the sun, and without it, tens of thousands of people would die annually from skin cancer. And a little more research from those evil scientists who were only interested in getting money from the government revealed that the CFCs, after their release, would eventually, after years, make their way up to the upper atmosphere, where the chlorofluorocarbons would catalytically destroy the ozone. This meant that a single molecule of CFC could destroy hundreds of thousands of molecules of ozone before being rendered inert by some form of radical combination reaction. Now, if left unchecked, the entire ozone layer would have been depleted in less than 100 years. And we and all other forms of life on Earth would have almost no protection from the cancer-causing hard UV rays of the sun. This was clearly bad. And with the source of the problem identified and the effects clearly documented, evil scientists who were getting paid to do science convinced evil globalist governments to destroy the chlorofluorocarbon manufacturing industry of America by globally banning CFCs in things like hairspray. And then they went back to using things like butane as a blowing agent. You know, because it's only a blowing agent. So, sarcasm aside, this was one of the great success stories of science, maybe on a par with things like eradicating smallpox. And decades later, thousands cheered a moron who summarized this problem like this.
Because, you know, in the United States, hairspray doesn't work. You know why? Because we're destroying the ozone every time you spray. They say, if I'm in my bathroom in Trump Tower, sealed with concrete, right? 8-inch concrete floors, 8-inch concrete walls.
But I hear where they don't want me to use hairspray. They want me to use the pump. Because the other one, which I really like better than going bing, bing, bing.
I spray my hair. Zip, zip. They tell me I'm destroying the ozone. It's 400 miles up. So they went out and got me some frickin' Australian hairspray, and I'll tell you, it was great. It held my hair. So if I take hairspray, and if I spray it in my apartment, which is all sealed, and you're telling me that affects the ozone layer? Yes. I say, no way, folks. No way. Okay? No.
That moron was later elected the leader of a country who went on to pull America out of the Paris Climate Accords.
The United States will withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord.
Now, it should be said that the Paris Climate Accords are more aspirational than operational. They were completely non-binding. So pulling out of them because you want to renegotiate them is kind of dumb.
But begin negotiations to re-enter either the Paris Accord or in really entirely new transaction. I was elected to represent the citizens of Pittsburgh, not Paris.
What do we care? We live in the United States.
The United States is part of the world.
Wow, I have been gone a long time.
So we're getting out. But we will start to negotiate, and we will see if we can make a deal that's fair. And if we can, that's great. And if we can't, that's fine.
The goals were essentially aspirational, signed by every country on Earth, with the exception of Nicaragua and Syria. And they wanted to limit global warming to less than 2 degrees. At about 2 degrees, it's really not known what will happen to the Earth afterwards, but the reckoning is at about 2 degrees, cutting carbon dioxide after that probably won't help because other positive feedback mechanisms will give climate change a momentum of its own. It's kind of like a tipping point, after which there's no going back to the way things were. But hey, I guess we should vote for him because he's not a feminist. or I feel like I trust Trump. He's the guy I most relate to.
When he met Trump at a campaign event.
Meeting him, that made a huge difference. Yeah, made a huge difference. Just because it was somebody who, he really felt like one of us. I had that feeling.
And we've got to keep our priorities straight. Honestly, folks, the reality of the world is you got to choose your allies and your fights. And I watch with some dismay as those who turn the feeding frenzy on moronic, entitled, stuck-up social justice warriors. And hell, you see my history. I despise social justice warriors as much as the next man. But this community essentially turned that into cheerleading for Trump. I mean, really, how many in the skeptical community openly opposed crap like this?
Well, I'm not a big believer in man-made climate change. There could be some impact, but I don't believe it's a devastating impact. But no, I would say that it goes up, it goes down. I think it's very much like this over the years. We'll see what happens. I mean, we'll see what happens. I believe it was in the 1920s they talked about the phenomena of global cooling. They thought the planet was getting cooler. Now they think the planet is getting warmer. And I have a feeling it's sort of this. But nobody knows for sure. You know, they used to call it global warming. They've had many different, they call it extreme weather. They always change the name to encapsulate everything.
I think that there'll be little change here. It'll go up, it'll get a little cooler, it'll get a little warmer like it always has for millions of years. I don't believe that what they say, I think it's a big scam for a lot of people to make a lot of money.
Yeah, there weren't many of us, and they rejoiced when Trump was elected leader. Hell, they mocked people like me, saying that I was just salty that Trump won. I lost over 10,000 subscribers. I mean, it wasn't like I had a reputation for fighting scientifically illiterate morons on YouTube for over 10 years or anything. And the constant jibes about Thunderfoot should stick to science. Yeah, stick to science and leave politics to the experts like this.
Now, I have to tell you, it's an unbelievably complex subject. Nobody knew that healthcare could be so complicated.
You know, healthcare is complicated because our healthcare system is so complex. I suffer no illusions that this will be an easy process. Once again, it will be hard. Healthcare is complicated stuff.
Nobody knew that healthcare could be so complicated.
I mean, what? Did you really think that I would side with the vaccine denialist, climate change denialist, simply because he gave the finger to the social justice warriors? Yeah, and I remember losing thousands of subscribers at the time. But you know what? As time goes on, this looks more like a badge of honor than a mark of shame. Well, where are those petty little gloaters now? You have a man with almost no understanding of the problems he's dealing with, making decisions that will impact the world. And yeah, impact the world is about right. Because even though the Paris Climate Accords is probably too little, too late, it was little more than a statement of intent. At least it was a step in the right direction. A moment when the entire world stood in unity, with the exception of Syria and Nicaragua. You know, on pretty broad goals like limiting climate change to less than 2 degrees. Having the world's second largest excreter of carbon dioxide saying it's going to take its ball and go home looks more like an effort to undermine the only sensible attempt to try and get some sort of global consensus on trying to do something about climate change. Hell, maybe no one should tell Trump about the Montreal Protocols. Else he might want to pull out of that too. You know, fight those evil climate scientists with their preposterous ideas that CFCs can deplete the ozone layer.
So if I take hairspray, and if I spray it in my apartment, which is all sealed, and you're telling me that affects the ozone layer? Yes. I say, no way, folks, no way, okay? No.
All those lying scientists who calculated that if we hadn't banned CFCs, merely in the US alone, you would have had an additional 40 million cases of skin cancer, resulting in some million extra deaths. But hey, Trump understands these issues. He knows that if he sprays something on his head in his apartment, then there's no way that the gases that he sprayed in there can possibly get out.
They say if I'm in my bathroom in Trump Tower, sealed with concrete, right? 8-inch concrete floors, 8-inch concrete walls. I spray my hair. Zip, zip. They tell me I'm destroying the ozone that's 400 miles up.
Well, hell, if Trump's bathroom was hermetically sealed, then of course he would have been right. But it would have also meant that the carbon dioxide that he was breathing out would have just built up in his bathroom till it reached about 5%, at which point Trump would have passed out and died from carbon dioxide poisoning. In fact, it would be very interesting to know if Trump really thinks that no gas has come in or out of his apartment, to know why he thinks that he hasn't suffocated or died of carbon dioxide poisoning yet. In fact, whatever, hell, let's do this. Let's see how far the stupidity goes. Good start, Trump, on pulling out of Paris Climate Accords. Montreal Protocol next. Make America great again. Montreal Protocols single-handedly destroyed the entire US CFC industry. Donald Trump should pull out now. Defend US interests. Make America great again. Yeah, get on Twitter and retweet those, because I've just got to see how far does the stupidity go. But hey, I guess all those "you're just salty Trump" one folks can rejoice that 2016 was the hottest year on record, while simultaneously having the head of the EPA who thinks that there's been no global warming since 1998. And you know what, folks? It's the current year. It's the hottest year on record. Is something that you're going to be hearing a lot of in the coming decades. I mean, just for the record, 1998 was the hottest year on record. Then 2005 was the hottest year on record. Then 2010, then 2014, then 2015, and now 2016 was the hottest year on record. Or if you want to do it by decades, the 80s was the hottest decade on record. Then the 90s was the hottest decade on record. Then the noughties were the hottest decade on record. And now the teens is thus far the hottest decade on record. And I ask you, if you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. And most importantly, share it. Because thus far, this has been the second hottest year on record. And this problem will not stop in the lifetime of anyone watching this video. And there are still folks at the highest level of government pretending that there's nothing to be concerned about because there's been no global warming since the late 90s.
Why are the hottest temperatures in the last decade essentially the hottest temperatures that we've seen on record?
We've actually been in a hiatus since the late 1990s.
I urge you to share this video now. And if you like scientifically literate media like this, you can support this channel directly through Patreon.